Welcome to Off Center Podcast. I am your host, Leondria. This is a podcast for people like myself who are trying to navigate through this life of ups, downs, and of course, social media. I'll be giving you a look into my own personal battles, along with a wide range of guests who are willing to lay it all on the table. Let us know how they got through and how they're getting through. So, join me every Saturday as we unpack issues, create community, and most importantly, keep it all the way real. So, right now, stop what you're doing and head over to Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Like and subscribe. You don't want to miss a beat. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Off Center Podcast. I'm so happy you guys are here. We have Forever Cole, my brother from another, Brother Rick, and Miss Hodge. And I'm just telling you right now that I love the bald head baddie because women need we rocking it all. The short, the long, the locks, the natural, everything. And I'm just loving to see it all. Welcome. So today we're talking about judging others. Now, I know I'm gonna be the first one to say when I heard the topic, I was thinking about, okay, are we talking about the screenshots that we send in the group chat? Or are we talking about those instances where people are judging us to the point of where we feel like we have to change who we are, what we're doing, and what we're about based upon what others' judgments are?
It's an interesting question. I think when it comes to judging others, I think it's when it directly affects you, right? I mean, we have to be careful what we put in text messages and emails or whatever the case may be. We have to be careful because, according to scripture, we can read that there's an angel watching everything we do anyway. The judging others' judgment directly affects somebody. So I think that's more of what we're talking about when it directly affects somebody. So that's just what I think when I think, judging others. If they don't know how I feel, then they don't know that I'm judging them.
That's a good point. I often think I I often think that sometimes when I use people judging me used to really get to me. It used to be something that bothered me because I just felt like I'm doing my best. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, what's the problem? But it also showed me that sometimes when people are judging you, it's based on their own insecurity of something that you may be possessing that they don't possess.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I have to look at judging others as in that form to keep me centered into what I know that I'm supposed to be doing and who I know that I am.
I'll say this. When I heard the topic, I was like, oh Lord, what are we about to talk about? I was especially because I do have the podcast out and I was like, why would I be asked to talk about it, right? I think prejudgment is normal. I was actually having a conversation about this with my daughter recently. And we were just saying, well, she actually enlightened me because she was like, well, you're supposed to judge people initially, especially like if you're in a dark alley or, you see somebody that looks creepy. But, so I think we judge people naturally. I think it's like you said, Brother Rick, when it affects a person or makes a person feel bad. But I think also sometimes we feel that judgment. It could be an action, right? But sometimes we feel prejudgment because, like you said, our own insecurities and something that we may be feeling. Some people judge because they're insecure. Some people feel that they're being judged because they are insecure about themselves.
I think that's an excellent point as well. And I also believe that judgment is a learned behavior, right? Because you can look at someone to see if they're safe or not. Because as a kid, right, you'll be like, is this person safe? You're taught if, strangers, things like that. But when you set out to judge someone, it could be very critical in a critique way coming from a ex-corporate background where we have to do critical analysis or critical criticism on someone, but it's also in a critique form, not to put the person down, but to build them up. Mm-hmm. But when I think about judging someone, it's just it's a negative impact, and it's coming from a negative place, not well, I observed this and I want to share what I'm feeling with you because this is where I am and this is where I see where you are, versus you, the intent to not be positive or to look for the bad in everything. And sometimes it could just come from your environment where we have to unlearn a lot. And coming from years of being very religious, brought up very religious, that even though it says in the Bible that we should not judge and cast the first stone and all the scriptures that I could give out, it seemed to have been a learned behavior of this is, and it's like, wait a minute, that's not what we're supposed to do. Well, for me, my personal principles, because I think everybody does what they should do. But yeah.
And that was a good point, even bringing up church, because I know a lot of times in church there's a lot of judgment, whether out loud or if it's just with those looks or those certain type of conversations. Because I know I've grown up in church, and we get those, even though they say, hey, come as you are. People come in church and they maybe have on distressed jeans or tight this or look not in a way where the other church people think they should look inside the church house. And that gives people an impression that we're there for the wrong reason. Am I here for what I have on, or am I here to learn about my Lord and Savior?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the judgment, it goes from constructive criticism to judgment. And then that's when there's that judgment. And it's like when we start to judge people, we feel like that they should sit in that judgment that we've given them. Like our opinion is fact.
Mm-hmm.
And what I just said, you should take to heart. And I found myself doing that a lot, just taking what others say about me to heart. Oh, you can't do this because of how you were raised or whatever the case is. And it's like, I'm capable because God created me to be capable. And your judgment is really just saying, you think that I can reach that plateau that I'm reaching for. Brother Rick, has there been any instances, whether church or outside of church, where you felt like that they were judging you, or you felt like it was based on wanting you to do something different than what others around you were doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Last time you seen me, I ain't look like this.
You did
So,
not.
I didn't have none of this. I didn't have this. It's been a long time. So when I decided to change my look, when I decided that I'm gonna walk a little differently, when I decided I'm gonna walk a little closer to scripture, everybody didn't necessarily agree with it. And yeah, they judged me. They judged my entire family. They was like, oh, they not the same. They this, they that. And I'm like, look, we reading the same book. We saying the same name. We worshiping the same God. But because I don't do it like you do, and I don't look like you, and I don't act like you want me to act, I'm just not the same person anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for them, not for me. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate for them because you have to be careful, because when we prejudge people or judge people, it just shows your insecurities.
And you did, and you doing something different was based upon what was best for you and your family, not necessarily negating what anybody else has to say or what anybody else is doing. But we often forget that the things that we do in life is for the betterment of us and our family. And
Mm-hmm.
most people don't, I feel like, don't always take that into consideration when they're saying, oh, you changed, you're not the same, or you're doing something different. But like Jay-Z said, you think I work this hard to stay the same?
That's right. Listen, if you serving God, if you are a servant of Jesus Christ, I hope you change. I hope you're not the same servant that you were 10 years ago. Because
Yep.
if you are, then there's a problem. That means you have hit a plateau and that your understanding has now completely just stopped. You got too comfortable with where you were and you didn't have hope to go any further. I hope you change. I hope you're not the same person. I hope you have a better understanding. I hope that I can see your walk and not just hear your walk.
Okay, you listen. I didn't know we was coming to preach tonight, but I'm here
You
for
can't put me
it.
on no podcast without
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Like, I work at an elementary school, and I often try to tell my older kids, stop talking about people all the time. You don't know what's going on with their household. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know anything about them. And the fact that you come to school every day to, oh, look at their shoes. Oh, look at their clothes. And it's like, for what reason? Like a sixth grade, I had on some Jordans at work the other day, and the sixth grader was like, Miss M, them fake. And Brother Ricardo knows me. You ladies, you're going to get to know, but I'm real, like, I'm fast with it. So when he said it, I'm like, even though he's in sixth grade, I'm like, okay, you, how you gonna judge my shoes? Like, and he went as far as to say, we gonna think they fake until you show us the receipt. Y'all, and as an adult, and I'm like, in my head, I know my shoes real, but at that time, it was like, no, he didn't.
You show him the receipt.
No, I did not, because and then when he said it, the first thing I'm tell the truth, Shane, the devil. I said to him, he said, Miss M, your Jordan's fake. And I said, if my shoes fake, the purse your mama carrying is fake. You don't buy your own stuff, I buy my own stuff. So then after that comment, I was just like, you know what? Don't worry about it. I got something for y'all tomorrow. So the next day I wore a different pair of shoes. And so now they like, now it's the same kids. Oh, Miss M, what size shoes you wear those? You don't think these fake?
Like, Jackie, you better be careful.
Exactly. But it just goes to show you how even the slightest, as an adult, I let that sixth grader tell me my shoes being fake. It caught me off guard, and it made me want to kind of boss up, even though I know I'm the one in control of this situation. And that's how messed up judging is. It have you thinking crazy thoughts and doing crazy things.
It's a society thing right now, I have to say. Like, it's just, especially when you see the younger generations coming up and how everything is put to be judged. The cancel culture,
Yes.
everything is like based on judgment, not based on love, not based on acceptance. Even though they say they want to be accepted, even though they have million labels that they want to label themselves as, they have to learn all of the acronyms and all of the alphabets that they have in the front and the back of their name, even if it's not a degree. And I'm not knocking it, but it's like, you want us to be this open to what you, where you are, but the way you lead is literally with judgment and conviction and like a defense. And I just wish we could find a way to like be where we could put that defense down and just be like, okay, let's accept each other. And even if you got on a good dupe, there's some dupes out there that listen. I'm just saying.
That's awesome. I asked a friend of mine to get them for me. I'm not even gonna lie. I was like, oh, how much now?
Overseas.
People think I spend on this, so I'm gonna tell you, I judge myself harder than I allow other people to judge me. I am hypercritical of myself.
Yeah.
I did that podcast or whatever, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm down, let's do it, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw it on social media and I was like, oh no, they see me crying. No one sees me crying, you know, like I'm strong. And then I thought about what people would think, but I've gotten nothing but great responses. But for me, myself, I am like, oh no, did I do this too far? Should I not have done? I'm talking myself out of things because I have judged myself in certain situations in my past. And now seeing where I am now, it makes me nervous at times to say, you know, my colleagues, the people that see me, like, I model on the side, and some of the things I model, like people in the church would be like, oh no, or, you know, I would have even my colleagues be like, oh wow, she does this because I look completely different from work than behind the lens, right? We start judging outwardly when we're so sick of judging ourselves and we need somebody else to pick on. And as much as I love how the new age is like, oh, I'm so free, I accept everything, they do judge. Oh,
yes, everything.
Listen, I got a 21 and an 18-year-old, so I'm dealing with it, okay? And my 21-year-old thinks she knows everything. And I just sit back and I'm like, the world will teach you certain things that you need to learn. I think we want society as a whole to be just this loving kumbaya fam. But I mean, come on now, the past, 6, 8 years have shown us that people think some really harsh and negative things, and it's it's apparent. There's some things that we wish we could change, but hatred is real. I think the best thing we can do is just, learn to be kind to ourselves, because then we'll be
Mhm.
kind to others.
I like that, being kind to ourselves and we can be kind to others, and it's up there. I think I'm gonna put that up there with my assuming goodwill, even when we do feel like people are judging us or saying things that go against how we naturally want to do things. Sometimes now I'm trying to work in the realm of assuming goodwill, because sometimes people just don't know how to say things. People just don't know how to carry those type of conversations sometimes, and sometimes you have to. Okay, I get what you're saying. In hindsight, I get what you're saying, but next time it was a better way that you could have said that for me to receive it in the way in which you wanted to put it out there. And I think that's something that the world as a whole can take into a lesson that we, as the world as a whole, can take, because it's too many instances where we do things and we say things and we feel as if we are saying it to give somebody good advice or to move them in the right direction, but it comes off as, sometimes it could be hating, sometimes it could be judgment, but we have to ask ourselves, does this person actually mean us harm? Does this person actually, outside of the scope of this, um mean for me to excel in whatever it is that I'm doing? So Miss Hodge, is judging others is actually could actually be turned into goodwill, not taking it as you're judging me on whatever it is?
Well, I'm glad I wanted to know more about what assuming goodwill was, so I like that you explained it, because I like that phrase, like assuming goodwill. But for me, I have a hard stop personally when I hear the word judging, right?
Okay.
I took so many years to do exactly what Nicole said about being kind to myself. Sometimes I'll text people who I know work really hard and do a lot, especially those that are still back in corporate America. And I'll say, don't forget to be kind to yourself today. Because when you're handling build millions of dollars, or you have people underneath you, you are like, and not even to add on the childhood or trauma that you have gone through, right? You are constantly having yourself at a bar, and it's a judgment at that bar. So
Yeah.
for me, I stop at the word judgment, because when I hear it, I'm like, ooh, I don't want that in my space, because
Yeah.
like I get very kumbaya. So goodwill was like it drew to me. I was like, ooh, goodwill, this is good. I want to know what that means, because I'm like in that I'll go meditate, or I'm just in that, like even with having alopecia and shaving my head, I feel like I look like
Hmm.
Buddha. And so I'm just all the time like I just want to be centered and peaceful, right?
Yeah.
For me, because I I worked hard on getting in a space with all the things, and I'm in therapy every Wednesday morning. My therapist asked me today, like, why are you here? Why do you need me? You seem to be balancing everything. I said, because I'm also moving forward into a realm that I've never been in before. And I know that that old person could come in and say, ooh, let's tear this up, because
Yes.
you wasn't supposed to be here, because you were told that you weren't ish and you ain't never gonna be ish, right? So I was like, I stay here for accountability and balance. So for me, assuming goodwill is when I know I'm doing good towards someone. So if I know that judgment is cast, I can't equate goodwill into that. I have to find a way to say, okay, well, maybe I need to use my words differently to build this
Yes.
person up, but still letting them know, I would like for you to work on this. Or how can we work on this together? Because sometimes it is not just them, it's us. We got to work on it together, right? It's a thing. And so that's where, like for me, if I'm going to assume goodwill, even if I'm off, like I'm from the East Coast, I'm from New Jersey. I was
Okay.
in New York at one point, and people from Jersey used to be like, "There's no way you're from New Jersey," and she comes out sometimes. She does, and so I may have to go back and just say, "Can we revisit this conversation?" Because I need to apologize. But you know,
Yeah.
um, so that for me, I would just have to say, if I'm going to really assume goodwill, there has to be good that comes out of it and make the person feel good.
Yeah.
And I can control their emotions or how they respond, but if it doesn't build them up or help the situation, then it wasn't good for me. So I don't think I can't say I mastered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you got something to say, Brother Rick.
So when I think of goodwill, I only think of one will, right? And that's the will of God.
And that's good.
When the young lawyer came to Jesus, he called him good master. And Jesus said, there's none good but one, right? And that is my Father in heaven. So when we think of, and this is my personal understanding of the goodwill, assuming goodwill. We understand that in order for us to understand or to get some type of knowledge on the will of God, it basically comes down to what did God tell you to do, right? It's real simple, right? If we understand what he told us to do and we operate within the realm of the things that he told us to do, then we can never be out of goodwill. It's really simple, right? A lot of times we like to complicate it, and a lot of people do this. And I'm not saying any of you are complicating it, right? I believe everybody on this podcast is doing exactly what they feel is best for them in their life right now, right? And I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah.
But this is just where I am, right? Especially as a preacher. When we are operating within the will of God, then we're always assuming goodwill. Because the will of God is to not offend anybody. The will of God is to be slow to anger. The will of God is to be slow to speak. So then how can I be out of goodwill? How could I not assume goodwill as long as all that I'm doing is everything that he told me to do? Like, we don't have an understanding on love, right? Because we always think love is this feeling. But the Bible teaches us that feeling is just affection, right? Like the affection I have for you, Leo, we go back like a Cadillac on 4 flats plus the one in the back. Okay, the affection that I have for you is different from the affection I have for my wife, but I love y'all just the same.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because he said love is keeping the commandments. What is that? I won't steal from you. I won't try to kill you. I'm not homosexual, so I definitely won't try to sleep with your husband. Ain't gonna be no adultery. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. Listen, this is the love of God, right? He told us the love of God is to keep the commandments, and the commandments are not grievous, so they don't bring you down. They only build you up. So if we understand the difference of affection and love, then we start to understand the difference of understand God's will, and that's how we assume goodwill at all times. As long as we within the will, then we ain't without it.
I'm not gonna lie with you, Brother Rick. I have been like squirming, man, and I've been trying, but I have felt the most judgment from the people in the church. No lie. Like, and I think, okay, so the definition of judgment is an opinion or a conclusion about someone without like that's what it is. It's an opinion or a judgment. So criticism versus judgment are two different things. You can prejudge somebody just based off of how they walk into a room. You don't have to get to know them. You can be all spiritual and be like, oh, well, God taught me I have to be this way. But I will tell you, the people that have had the most judgment and conclusions about me just from me walking into a room or thinking they know about a situation of me, they have, and these aren't just people in the church, these are pastors. And notice I say plural, okay? These are the women of the church, the mothers of the church. Like, judgment is real and judgment is everywhere, but the ones that are the most saved and the most holier than now are the ones that tend to say the things that they don't need to say half the time, because just because you believe in God and it's not saying I don't. It's not saying I don't. But what it is saying is that I don't hide behind religion to be who I am. And because if I feel a certain way behind somebody, it's from what they've shown me. I have learned to accept people for what they show me versus what I automatically assume about someone. And just because they may not be walking the way I'm walking, just because they may not be doing the things that I'm doing, just because they may believe in Buddha, that's them. That is not my. And the first time I start bringing up how their religion may be wrong, or hold up now, there's only one. You can't do that, because it's not how you bring people into the life of Christ. It's not how you bring God to a person. You like
he said it, loving kindness have I drawn thee.
Exactly. Someone could be watching this and the first thing they say, oh well, Buddha, and then now the love, that person may turn this off because that's not what they want to hear. They want
Yeah.
to be accepted and heard from and understood, because you can't bring somebody in with any kind of negativity or hatred. And whether you like it or not, sometimes making statements like that can bring it.
Okay, we have to be careful, right? And the reason I say that is because, and I have to defend my testimony, right? Because that's my story. And if my story is revolved around everything that I found in the book and how it changed my life, that obviously that's what's going to come out. Just like the same with you, whatever your story is, whatever your testimony is, that's what's going to come out. And don't get me wrong, when I say what I say, I don't do it to offend anybody, though some people could take offense. But I have to defend my testimony, which is the word of God. So when we say, the most saved people and the most holy people, listen, if they judge you, they the total opposite. And I'm telling you what, I'm going by what the book say. So when we say, it was pastors and it was this and it was that, listen, people don't like me because I come against pastors. I shut down whole ministries only because I stand on the whole word of God and I don't do what's just beneficial to my agenda. So that's the only, I'm only saying the people that did that and made you feel that way, right? We can't label them people as saved. We can't label them people as holy because, as Leo just said, with love and kindness have I drawn thee. The Bible teaches us to love one another. The Bible teaches us to be kind to one another. Just like, morals in general, right? If you don't believe in the Bible, everybody has morals. We understand what those are. And that's to love one another. That's to be kind to one another. That's to be accepting. As she stated earlier in the podcast, the Bible says, come as you are. That's to accept the person where they are until they are ready or until they have reached the point of change.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is. Unfortunately, people taking this book, man, and they using it the wrong way and they beating people with it. They're running people away from it, and it's supposed to be used to draw people in.
Yes.
I just gotta say, you know what I'm saying? That I ain't that type of person. And if I came off that way, sister, please believe me, I am the total opposite. I am not that person. It's just I've been through what you've been through. They done ran us up out of the church a couple times, man. And I was preaching in the church. So listen, I ain't gonna keep talking. I just wanted to put that out.
But these are the conversations that people aren't having. These are the conversations that need to be had, because in my generation, the millennials, I see a lot of them, I left the church, but I didn't leave God. And a lot of it is church hurt. A lot of it is church hurt. A lot of it is church judgment. And because we're having this conversation, I feel like we need to try to figure out what these resolutions look like, what that change looks like, because we know that our God accepted everybody. When he was on the cross, he said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. He did not say, yeah, they were some murderers, they were some thieves, send them. No, he gave everybody opportunity to do something different and to change. And I think that's one of the reasons why my generation, the millennials, are kind of like, okay, what else y'all got other than telling me what I shouldn't have on, what I shouldn't be doing? What else do you have for me? Because it's real things that we're going through out here, and it's not a real representation in the church because a lot of people don't want to be transparent about their stories. Like Brother Rick said, he has a story. We all have a story. And I feel like it's important as church, as people that go to church, that we allow people to be who they are in order to get to where they need to be. Because at one point we were allowed to be who we were until we grew to something different. And we are forgetting that God orchestrated something different, and we're turning it into something tainted. And now, instead of drawing people to him, we're pushing them further and further back from the kingdom. And I feel like what better time is it to come up with a solution? Because this is our time. We see how the world is going. We see that lives are being taken. I live in Chicago right now, and we see how lives from children to adults. My little cousin, 17. He was killed on Friday, and that was I see it all the time on Facebook and the news, but to wake up to that phone call was different. And I'm asking myself, how can we do something different? How can we do it different? How can the church step in and help make our communities what we know that they can be, what they could look like without people feeling as if I have to come a certain way. I have to be seen in a certain light. I have to say this certain thing.
I've worked in churches for many years. I've served in churches. My grandfather was a pastor, and I'm the daughter of a teenage grandfather. So my grandparents and my great grandparents were very instrumental in raising me. So I was raised as a PK, right? Have experienced church hurt. I've experienced in my family level. I've experienced it when I went on to other ministries, and I was one of those people. I'm not a millennial. My babies are millennials, right? But I feel like it took me to have a greater understanding of myself based on what my belief system is, and my belief system is the Bible, and knowing it for myself, and then understanding that people are going to be people because I'm not perfect. There's not a perfect people, right? And then getting into a place where, like yourself, wanting to be in a space where we can be harmonious. And how is that? But I know it started with me. So first I had to forgive. I had to forgive myself. I had to understand that just because you have a title doesn't mean you are the author and finisher of my faith. So I had to start there and then understand if I'm going to forgive them so I can move on, so that I'm not being an example of what was given to me. How important is that? So I'm not replicating what I was taught. And I'm not saying every person that was in my family or every person that I was under were bad. I'm not saying that I experienced church hurt from everyone, but I experienced at a great level. I don't want to go into it because it'll take the whole podcast over. But the reality is that when I found the peace, and I asked God for myself, give me the peace that passes all understanding. Then give me understanding. I want to know what understanding truly is. And with sincerity, he began to change some things for me. And while my walk looks different from people that I grew up with, who are still very much so in that Baptist realm and they're very traditional and that's what they do, I love them. I do have friends that, you know, they practice Buddhism. I have friends that are Muslim and different avenues of life. I love them because we are people. And if I'm going to really love, I have to love. And I have to love despite where I am because, like you said, Jesus, he ran with so many people,
Yep.
and it wasn't like, well, you're a prostitute, so oh no,
Yep.
I can't come nigh to you. You know what I mean? Like it was,
Yep.
the reality is that you don't know what you're gonna give somebody,
Yep.
so they can look at themselves differently. And then if they give somebody something because they looked at themselves differently and it becomes a chain reaction, then maybe we're representing what we believe if that's what you choose to believe. And
Yeah.
so I am very grateful that I can embrace those people. Now, certain people you gotta keep with a long handled spoon.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't have all against them, right? I
Yeah.
work towards that. And so when I did, I found myself embracing a whole different life that I didn't even know was
Okay.
available to me because I wasn't then replicating what was said to me and then even giving that self harm to myself by negative self talk. So, this is why I can be the bald head baddie. I don't care if you don't believe it.
Period.
I believe it. You know what I'm
Period.
saying?
I think I need a nickname. I'm gonna be the
Come on.
bearded boss.
Bearded boss. I like
I'm the
that.
bearded boss. She
I like
bald head
that.
baddie. I'm the bearded boss.
Come
I
on.
like that. Nicole, question. Are you do you attend church now
No.
or you left? Okay.
Yeah. I was really big in church in Illinois. I served in a lot of different ministries. And then when I moved to Maryland, I was still in church, very active in church. Went to Texas, and it just wasn't it. Okay. Like, I think you just need, and it's not all pastors, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that, but I've attended a lot of different churches. And Sometimes you could just sit back and you just listen, right? Just
Yeah.
literally go in there to just listen, right? Not everybody goes to listen. You go for the music, you go to socialize, to
Pass
commemorate,
yourself.
commemorate with others. You want to talk and do all that stuff. But when you go to just sit there and you listen, and then you hear a pastor talk about one thing and he's not getting the response that he wants, so he jumps to a good old faithful line, and you looking like this ain't have anything to do with this. And
Yeah.
so I started noticing a lot of that. And then even when I was in churches that did make sense and, it was a good vibe, I just noticed that, I tried smaller churches to be more intimate. And those
Hmm.
I think can sometimes be the worst because it's a little too intimate. And people think that they know you because they see you a couple times a week. And it's like, yeah, you don't know me though.
Yeah.
Like I bite my tongue here, but so
Would you go back?
um I'm really undecided about that. Do I've always loved going to church. I really did. I I think it's one of those things where right now I'm not feeling it. And because I travel for work to try and get into a community, it's kind of impossible for me. I have talked to my son because he is my youngest,
Hmm.
and I raised them in church.
Yeah.
For many years, up until maybe about 6 or 7, I actually stopped. And I was talking to him about it, and I'm like, do you miss church? Is it something you want to do? And he has said, voiced that he's interested in going back, but he's also interested in learning about other religions
Yeah.
because he wants to, make an informed decision over his
Decision.
life. And I'm one of those parents. I agree with it. I'm like, you do what's best for you, not what you've been taught is best for you. Um,
I have a
mm,
question real quick. What about online church?
I don't know. I've never even thought about it, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
It's never even really occurred to me. I just
I mean, it's an option until you want to go back into an environment because you are the church.
mhm.
So, what about attending an online service just to get fed if that is something
That's a good
that
point.
you desire?
That's something I would really be open to. And y'all can pass along any that you think are really good. I'm welcome to
Hey, I got an
attend.
awesome one. Every
I
Friday
will.
night at 7:30. Listen, we got an awesome class.
All right, send me
And,
the
and that's
info.
I'm glad. It makes me sad that you feel that way because I've belonged to 3 churches in my life. And all 3 of the churches that I attended was became family. Even the church that I'm at now, I've been at this church since I was a kid. And our motto is the church where everyone is family. And it's a small church. And I like small churches because I want to feel like I have a connection to my leader, to the people around me. And even though my leader is my grandfather, it's kind of like, but over the years, it became that way because of the love that he has for his church and for his members. So it just became, and then when I moved to Bloomington, I went to church and they became a family. I can't I can't say that I really have experienced the church hurt, but I know it's real because I've known, even at my church, I have family members, and my cousin got pregnant, and she was an adult, but people put her on this pedestal like she couldn't do anything. And, you hear people, walking past saying certain things, but it's like for me and us, it's like, who are you to place judgment on anybody? First of all, second of all, if God has forgiven her, who are we not to? And who are we to we often put people on these pedestals, and and it's like they fell from grace. But it's like, who asked to be on these pedestals because I'm the pastor's granddaughter, or I'm the pastor's daughter, or I'm related to somebody high in the church, that now we're on these pedestals, and when we fall, it's kind of like, close the doors. They didn't messed up. And it's like, no. And it goes, and I like it because it just shows you that we often do make mistakes sometimes, but we need to be loved just as much during our mistakes as we need to be loved during the times where we feel like we're doing everything right and we're perfect with everything. And so that makes me sad. But I do when we finish, I do want to give you the link to my church because we do have church online on Sundays. And I feel like the ministers that one thing I love about my ministers in my church is that they always find themselves back at the drawing board trying to figure out what is it that we need to draw people? What do we need to do? What do we need to talk about? What topics are out there? What are people going through? What do people need to hear? So they're always petitioning God and preaching, and they're transparent about the things that they've been through and where they've come from and where they're going and where they are now. So it's unfortunate that we have churches out here that don't really understand what God has sent them to do, because even in fellowship in church, even after the preaching is done, the fellowship one with another, with your brothers and your sisters, that's uplifting and encouraging, and it just all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I agree. I just think judgment is something that we need to work on within ourselves, and we'll be
Yeah.
better with others. And I think that's the biggest issue. If we take a long, not everybody's perfect, and everybody has their own story, their own life, their own
Yes.
things that have happened to them that has made them who they are. And the sooner we stop thinking, looking down after we've climbed this mountain to get to where we are, and then we're like, huh, I made it, and we start helping people up rather than saying, oh, take that step, like just help people instead of just
Hmm.
saying, like, yo, you're still down there, so I'm better. Because that's not the reality. We all are facing something in this world. And we when you're angry and when you're upset and when you're going through something, what is the first reaction? You want to make other people miserable, right? Well, if we take
Yes.
a step back and be with ourselves in our own misery, and then we deal with it, and then we go out into the world and we give what we would like to receive, it
Hmm.
would just be such a
Great.
happier place. And I think that just the only way you can start something like that is working on it individually.
This conversation was great. I enjoyed it. I want to ask, I love that takeaway that you just gave us. So we're following Miss Nicole, and I want to take away from Miss Hodge and Brother Rick that we can take away from this conversation that we had today, because I feel like it's a conversation that needed to happen.
I agree. I definitely agree. It's a conversation that needed to happen, and I hope when people do listen, they one really practice what assuming good is into practice for themselves. Because if they do that, I think that they can then do exactly what Nicole said. Start with yourself. Because if you're assuming goodwill, assume it for yourself as well. Be kind.
Hmm.
Practice what you preach out your mouth. We are in a space where we're technology based, we're wise enough, we're more advanced to not just say something just to say it, but you can actually live that out.
Yes.
If you do that, then we'll see this whole soft life that people want in this time, and it's achievable. It is, because we
It
said
is.
desire it. So that's my takeaway.
Brother Rick?
My takeaway is communication. Communication is key. If we communicate with people a lot more, then we'll understand that 9 times out of 10, I ain't gonna say 9 times, let's say 8 times out of 10, they're not who you think they are. They're not the way that you assume they are. Sometimes you may judge a person for a situation that you heard about, but you don't know the situation that you heard about because you didn't talk to the
That
person. You
person.
didn't
Yep.
find out if he or she was actually in the situation because of what brother said or what the sister said. You didn't find out that they are crying out for help, but all you see is their problem. And I think we need to communicate. And if we start to communicate, we need to have direction in our communication. Why am I communicating with you? I'm communicating with you because I care. I'm communicating with you because I want to know if there's anything that I can do to help you, because there might come a time when I need you to help me. And if
Yes.
you judge me the same way that I judged you, or prejudge, or whatever the case may be, we just gonna continue to go in circles. So I think we definitely need to communicate more. and meet people where they are and try to help them where they
Oh,
are,
that's
because
a
one
good
day
one.
you might need them to help you where you are.
Oh, that was a good one. Meet people where they are. We often forget that because we sometimes we need to be met where we are, and we need that same nice and kindness and courtesy as well. I just want to thank you guys again for being on the show today. I love it creating, having, hopefully this creates a conversation outside of the podcast so that people can come together and let's try to change the narrative. But before we go, I want the listeners to be able to go out and individually listen to you all. So if you can go ahead and tell us how we can follow you or how we can hear more about these podcasts that you have.
I'll let the ladies go first.
Okay.
Where can they follow you?
So at Forever Call on IG, that's my modeling page. I'm currently in the process of writing a book and talking to certain publishers. So something hopefully out soon. I have a 4-part series podcast on iDream Media. And that's just telling a little bit about my story, going a little bit into my book, not telling everything because I do have children, and I am learning that my own personal growth and learning a lot about my life is still affecting them in some ways, and so certain things will be left out. But I hope you enjoy and get to know a little about me.
Okay.
You can find me on Instagram. My podcast will be featured probably the first week of May.
Okay.
But we are on. Thank you. We are on IG, the AP Project podcast on Instagram, and I'm going to be really rolling it out soon. But when you hear it, you can follow us. It is
Yes.
Unapologetic Project. It is also the APproject.com is the website, and I have a documentary coming out this year towards the end of the year. We're in post production, so last year wiped me out, but we're done, and it is Make Room for Me, Unapologetically Fat in America. And I hope that you are there for it.
I
And
cannot wait.
it was a labor of love. I have a book coming out soon. Baby, the baby elephant with the blue balloon, a symbol of love. That'll be out Mother's Day,
Okay.
and just moving and getting some stuff done. And it was great. And I'm just here for the inception of the bearded boss. Like, let's go, brother Rick.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. Thank y'all for having me.
No
So
problem.
y'all can find me everywhere under the Bearded Boss. Not yet, but might be coming soon though. You can find me everywhere on every streaming platform under Brother Rick. Like it's spelled, that's the wrong hand. Like it's spelled right there. Me and my son, my 11-year-old son Javier, just dropped a 5-song EP, which has been doing great numbers. We just dropped a video on YouTube. We're currently trying to get over that hump on TikTok. I got stuck at like 419,000 followers. I'm trying to get to that 500,000. So y'all can help me out by going out there, following us, like up some stuff, share some stuff. I'm on Instagram under Brother Rick, Facebook, everywhere. I'm everywhere under Brother Rick. So feel free to reach out, stream the music, tell me how you like it. And I love honest opinions. Some people try to be harsh sometimes, and I say thank you for being honest.
Yes, I cannot wait to check out all of these platforms. And once again, thank you all for being on the show. Thank you for helping me have this conversation. And as we leave, let's all remember to love on ourselves so we can love on each other.